This workshop is taking place courtesy of the ministry and our very able partner, Kawesa Communications, which has been represented by Professor Kimani Njogu, who is just seated on the right. And I would like to inform you that Kawesa Communications contributed towards the holding of this workshop. Of course, we also appreciate that the ministry did also extend funding for this. That is why we are here. Today's workshop, as you have heard slightly from Mr. Omari, it's not a validation workshop, but I think this session, and I think I concur with Kawesa Communications, is to look at a document, a zero document that was prepared in 2011, so that it can be critiqued, polished, and improved before we go to the next stages of calling for a validation workshop. I want to take this opportunity to also to appreciate and thank the task committee that was appointed by our former PS, Dr. Jacob Oliviaron, to go and work on this zero drought. It was a team composed of eminent experts in the field of languages. Most of them, as you have heard, they are professors from our local universities. And I want to thank them very much, because without that initial step, today we will not be here. Secondly, I would like you to know that in this sitting, I think we are well represented. We have the base of Kenya, at least from all regions. We are even also participating in Pakistan from abroad, but are friends of those who love languages. We would like to, I will not take this opportunity to welcome you, but I am very convinced that our partner, Kawesa Communication, had the opportunity in the morning to welcome you, because it will look odd welcoming you while you have already been here and you have worked. But mine is to say, feel quite at home. We in the Department of Culture appreciate what we are doing with you. Many of the faces, at least we have met in different forums in our efforts to develop a larger culture sector, not only in language. So feel most welcome, and we appreciate what you are doing, and we promise that we will continue to engage you until we see this policy come out, and also relevant legislative framework which is there. And with those few remarks, is the guest of honor. I think I omitted introducing our guest of honor. Mr. Wenceslas Ongayo, OGW, is the Director of Administration. Now, the newly named Ministry of Sports, Culture and Arts. And is here to represent the Permanent Secretary. And I think he will be able to perhaps share with you why the Permanent Secretary will not be able to attend this, otherwise she was willing to come. And with those few remarks, I would like to welcome my other partner, the partner of the ministry, actually is the partner of the Ministry of Sports, Culture and Arts, Professor Kimani Njogu.
I just want to do some very quick commitments from Kawesa Communication that this work falls right inside our commitment to social transformation, and therefore our contribution to the ministry is part of our own, our own vision for our country. And I want to say that we will work with the Minister of Culture after this forum to once more, explore how best we can have the stakeholders convening, and that we are committed to doing it. We are also committed to working with the ministry until the bill is eventually passed. We are grantees of the Ford Foundation, and my program officer is Rosemary Okello, who is right here with us. And I must say that the foundation has continued to support work of some of us who are committed to social change through cultural re-engineering. And to say again thank you in front of our our guest that the Ford Foundation did come to support this meeting today. The policy documents, the policy statements that are coming out, the bill that is coming out is still very, very raw. But we believe that after all this is done, after this meeting and the next meeting and yet another meeting, we will have a bill that will be acceptable to all Kenyans and that will pass through Parliament without any hitch. We would like to ask the Minister of Culture, even before this bill is passed, to start the process of setting up a National Kiswahili Council. I do not believe that that council needs to wait until the bill is passed. It is possible, really, to start putting in place structures for the development of our languages, even without the bill. And this is because already within East Africa, we do have an East African Kiswahili Commission. The only way that Kenya will be represented in that commission is if we have a national council. Without a national council, other countries will take the space that Kenya should be occupying within the region. And therefore, I want to challenge the ministry, as well as the Department of Culture, to think seriously about putting in place structures, even if those structures are later to be farmed up, even if they are provisional structures, but at least they should be there. Otherwise, it's really a pleasure working with your team at the Department of Culture. We have a very close relationship, and we will continue working together. We would like to also urge that your cultural policy be accelerated. The version that exists is the 2009 version. It needs to be aligned with the Constitution. So really, as a matter of urgency, the next agenda beyond the languages of Kenya policy should be the cultural policy. Let me take this opportunity to welcome you and to invite you to say a few words of support.
Yes. So this speech is by Madam Leah Adaguyo, Foreign Secretary, Minister of State for National Heritage and Culture, during the official opening ceremony of Stakeholders Workshop on the Draft Languages of Kenya Policy and Bill on 22nd May at the Kenya Institute of Education. The Director of Twaweza Communications, the Acting Director of Culture, esteemed facilitators of the workshop, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen of the event for their commitment and dedication in making this workshop a success. I also wish to take this early opportunity to particularly thank the Director of Twaweza Communication, Professor Kimani Njoku, for partnering with my ministry in supporting and sponsoring this event, therefore making it possible for us to meet here and discuss issues relating to the formulation of the languages of Kenya policy and bill in response to the Kenya Constitution 2010 requirements as it concerns matters of language in our country. Ladies and gentlemen, in September 2011, my predecessor in the ministry, Dr. Jacob Olemiaron, constituted a technical committee of 10 experts on languages who were mandated to draft a basic languages of Kenya policy and bill as a working document. A 3-day retreat was then organized at the Kenya Pipeline Training and Conference Center, Morindat, Naivasha, from 18th to 21st September 2011, which came up with the draft languages of Kenya policy and bill. It was envisaged that the process will be done in the letter and spirit of the Constitution, which required involvement of various members of the citizens through stakeholders, consultations, and public participation, which is the reason of our being here today. Some of the members of the technical committee are here with us, and I wish to take this opportunity to congratulate and thank them for having maintained that commitment for this good work that they are doing for this country. Ladies and gentlemen, language is the key medium of human communication of thoughts and feelings through a system of arbitrary signals such as voice sounds, gestures, or written symbols. It is an indispensable tool of culture used to convey valuable cultural heritage from one generation to the other. All languages are linked through their origins and borrowing, but each is a unique source of meaning for understanding, writing, and expressing reality. As we are all aware, Kenya is a multilingual country with over 60 indigenous languages, with rich and diverse cultures that are invariably connected to the diverse linguistic groups in the country. Some of the languages spoken by minority communities are endangered, while others are on the verge of extinction. In order to respond to the linguistic and cultural diversity and the opportunity accorded by the constitutional recognition of multilingualism, a language policy framework is therefore necessary. In 2010, Kenya enacted the constitution that retained the status of Kiswahili as a national language and elevated it to official status in addition to English as according to Chapter 2, Article 7, and under Chapter 4, Article 54 of the Constitution, which states that the national languages of the Republic shall be Kiswahili. It further recognized the use of Braille and sign language as appropriate means of communicating for people with special needs. In our current constitution, it is stated that the state shall promote and protect the diversity of our people and promote the development and use of indigenous languages. In view of this, the ministry has found it necessary to initiate the process of formulation of the Languages of Kenya policy and its attendant legislative framework. It is envisaged that the process will be done in the letter and spirit of the Constitution, which requires involvement of the people through stakeholder consultation and public participation. The language policy takes into consideration the constitutional provisions on ethnic diversity and multilingualism and is aligned to the Kenyan government's goals for economic, socio-political, and educational growth as explained and outlined in our Vision 2030. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to inform you that the 2003 UNESCO Convention on Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage, ICH, makes explicit reference to languages as vehicles of the intangible cultural heritage. I hope that this convention will contribute to the safeguarding of linguistic diversity, which is a matter of great urgency in view of the pace at which some languages of some minority groups are threatened with disappearance. The teaching of languages, and in particular mother languages, is thus becoming more important than ever. Languages do not merely convey messages, but they also express emotions and values, confirm social relations, and transmit cultural and social expression and practices. Every individual has the ability and option of speaking his or her own language as a unique form of expression throughout life. It is because of this that every year on the 21st February, UNESCO member states and associate members celebrate the International Mother Language Day. The day was proclaimed by the General Conference of the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, in November 1999, with the aim of promoting linguistic and cultural diversity as universal values that strengthen the cohesion of societies. Mother languages is also significant because a child is able to communicate with parents. The CAST will ensure that necessary steps are taken to allow culture to play a vital role in the realization of the goals of Vision 2030 and beyond. Towards this end, the government will strive to create an enabling environment within which local languages can be promoted. Ladies and gentlemen, let us use this great opportunity during the discussion of this workshop to establish networks and links through which we can share ideas on how best languages can serve us in this age of globalization. It is my hope that this workshop will be able to come up with concrete activities on enhanced language use and development in order to give a new lease of life to the future of languages, and especially Kiswahili, as both the national and official language, inasmuch as to other endangered indigenous languages that require to be protected for their sustainability. Finally, I wish you a fruitful discussion in your subsequent session today and tomorrow. With these many remarks, it is now my pleasure to declare the stakeholders workshop on the draft languages of Kenya policy and bill officially opened. Okay, thank you very much for listening to me, but more so, me as a stakeholder, I think I can also add or subtract something. My emphasis will just be that maybe as you look at languages, let language be an instrument that we can use to create the cohesion that this society urgently and critically requires. Because it is through language that we make stereotypes about others. It is through languages that we appreciate others. And if at all the language that policy that we are going to develop does not give all communities and the diversity that exists in this country the requisite attention, then some people will always start saying that language policy was only done in boardrooms in the skyscrapers of Nairobi. It does not involve us. It does not talk of us. Let's come up with a policy that will give the language that are spoken within this nation the recognition that is required, the respect that is expected, and make sure that at least everybody feels proud to talk or communicate in their own languages. And sometimes you see when language itself becomes a very funny weapon in that language is what can unite us, and it is the same language that also makes us also have this harmony. It will be up to you as policy developers in this particular level and area. Can we come up with a situation or an idea or a statement through which the policy we are developing shall make Kenyans look at a language not as an instrument of disharmony, but an instrument that can make us get united. You know, sometimes when I look at humanity and what maybe God created societies to be, sometimes you marvel at the gifts that God gave human beings and He denied other animals. But when you look at other animals, they sometimes appear more organized than the human beings. Because sometimes animals don't have a language. But when they have a common cause, you'll never see each one of them going the other opposite direction. I know I have some of my friends here from the National Museums of Kenya. And the best example is usually like the safari ants. You know the safari ants, you don't know what time they will decide to go on a safari. But when they start that safari, everybody has one direction. And you'll find them either communicating, resting, sleeping, and always going the same direction. How come human beings, we can't do the same? And yet we have the advantage of language. You find that other animals, maybe if it is even within a season, they'll say we want now to migrate from Serengeti to Masai Mara. And they will all agree, isn't it? How come human beings, when we tell you that floods are coming in Budalangi, go to high ground, you refuse? And yet animals, you see, they communicate in such a way that you wonder if at all we were denied language, human being, how would we have behaved? Because we have that gift, but I have a feeling we have never taken advantage of it. Can we also, as we make this policy, try to borrow from the animals of the world? Not that we want to become animals, but let's see, what is it that makes those animals understand each other? They never go for elections, but they have our leaders, and even if at all they choose a leader, they never fight, they agree among themselves, they have very properly decided division of labor, what the young ones can do, what the middle-aged can do, what the women can do, if at all there are women there, and what the men can do, isn't it? Yet, human beings, we have this advantage of being organized, structured, but sometimes achieving our goals and objectives becomes a very big challenge. I hope as you develop this policy, you'll be able to address those needs, and that will make our language very useful and an area that will assist us in being able to promote the cultures, being able to promote our nationhood as we have always aspired. Because sometimes most of us, and most of you know very well that when we were even in primary schools, if you spoke in your vernacular, you used to be given a disc. So, and even sometime in the evening be punished, isn't it? And you know, and out of those modes, people developed negative attitudes to their mother tongues. Until now, people started wanting to get subsumed into other cultures through languages and even taking mannerisms that are not ours. So let's try and see and revive that particular aspect of our culture, of our language, and respecting it and giving it the due process and the space that the Constitution has provided for it. So with those few remarks, I wish you a fruitful discussion. Next time we meet, you give me a proper policy that will be defining how we shall behave and be able to achieve more than what wild animals do and as human beings who have been unable to achieve. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those remarks.
Why don't we just say the Constitution, or according to the Constitution of Kenya 2010, Kiswahili is the national language, and then we state the roles of the others, and then further summarize what the Constitution says regarding what should be done with other languages, so that this opens the discussion and spirit of the rest of the policy formulation by just summarizing what the Constitution says about languages in Kenya. Because this is a researcher's observation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Why don't we peg the whole thing
To Article
on,
7.
yes, on what the Constitution says?
Yeah.
This sets the background. If you also look at other policies like the National Policy and Action Plan on Human Rights, it also begins by setting a background, a context of where we are coming from. So those, I'm throwing those in as other examples of other policies, the way other ministries have done insofar as development of their policies. But that's just I don't know if I'm creating more confusion or I'm shedding light.
Let's listen to
Thank you. Truly, I'm not a linguist person, and I'm not an expert, but I'll talk as a community, as a minority community, using symbol language. This language is Kenya Sign Language, and if you say languages in Kenya, if you count them, says over 40, and forgetting sign language is as a special language. The deaf people will see like the deaf people are a community, a special group, and they are a tribe. The language they speak, if you go to Mombasa, go to Kisumu, the language is still the same, only with just different variations. So what I'm saying, when you're trying to talk languages and dialects, I'm getting a little bit confused, because we're saying 40 languages, but if you say dialects, we're talking about dialects within the tribe. For example, the Luo. We have South Central. They may not be the same. So we define under dialect, we must add the different dialects in these specific tribes. So it will be a little bit confusing.
Yeah, it will be confusing. I agree totally. I think that that's why we are removing the concept of dialect in the document.
So journalists do a lot of translations. Sometimes we lose meaning in translations. Sometimes we miss the story in translations. So if we can have a system whereby official communication from the government comes in those languages, so that you are just choosing to avoid this missing, and then it will also be standardized. For example, we will know whether the cabinet secretary is a waziri ama ni katibu, because it will be coming from the government, and that will be standardized somewhere by maybe the local language committee. But as it is right now, we should not encourage a situation whereby this community still comes in English only. And if we don't state here, I'm afraid it will still come in English only.
Do we need to specify how they will avail the websites in both English and Kiswahili?
And the second one,
I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there for consideration. So So once we say that they should have their websites in both languages, do we need to tell them that they'll need to localize and translate, or is it given?
I think it is given.
Yeah.
That's what you should put there.
Okay.
The government of Kenya exists at two levels, national and county. The official language of the government is English or Swahili. There is no other language.
So if the police commissioner, a police officer at a county level declares a curfew in mother tongue, it is not official.
It is not official. And if it is not written down, if it is not in writing, it is not signed, and it is not approved by senior officers, it is not an official, it is not an official order.
You see, we must distinguish this. First, with all the sympathies we have for our languages, we must understand this.